Hi everyone, this is Tatiana Judias hosting Thrive and Shine. We are on today, bringing you more joy, more light, more love, more abundance in every subject that we choose to speak about on this show, which is all about authentic power and conscious leadership. We want to bring you a little bit of light for your day, for your life. We want to bring you also amazing content as much as possible. So I really love to pick people who can bring you knowledge, skills, inspiration, and tools that will help you rise in your life, in your professional and in your personal life, and can also demonstrate how to live their principles and their teachings through their own life. So today we have Baily Hancock. Baily, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So Baily is a collaboration consultant, and of course, in my opinion, collaboration is such a feminine trait. We do naturally, when we are in that beautiful feminine energy, we naturally like to collaborate, right? And I thought that what you do was so interesting to me to specialize in collaboration, because first of all, we all need more collaboration.
Yes.
Right? We need to understand how to collaborate. It's almost like we need to come back to what is a natural thing to do, and we don't know how because we've been so again conditioned by society to be more competitive, to hide a lot of our wisdom, of our content, of our strategies, and today, as we are focusing more on I mean today in terms of today, not today literally today, but today in this world, I really do believe that that women wanting to come back to being more women in their lives are turning more towards collaboration. So this is why I had to have you on the show to discuss and pick your brains and have you tell us a little bit about you and why do you do what you do? What allowed you to pick this? So tell us. Start opening on this beautiful gift of yours.
I completely agree with you. I think we are very much in an age of collaboration, and I attribute that partially to the rise in more women going into business for themselves and rising into positions of power where they can lead and do business in a more feminine way, which is collaboratively, which is teamwork oriented. Inclusive. It's leveraging one another's strengths and amplifying each other's voices in a way that's going to allow all of us to succeed quicker, faster, better, more enjoyably together. And I think the reason why this feels like kind of a newer shift is because for so long we've been part of this patriarchal way of living and existing and working where it was very alpha driven. There's room for one, there's only room for one at the top. You know, you have to keep all of your information and your knowledge and your power to yourself so that you don't lose it.
It's a secret. You can't share it too much.
Right.
Because who knows who might take it.
Right.
It's a very scarcity based mentality.
It is.
Right?
It is. And I think we're starting to see this abundance mentality more and more rise up, and it's been wonderful for me because I've always been a natural born collaborator. And I think, you know, I came to this realization not long ago that I've always been the smallest kid in class. I'm like 5 feet tall at, 34 years old.
I just asked her to raise her seat.
Story of my life. No,
She's
I'm not standing
cute.
in a hole. And so I think without even realizing it, I've always recognized from the beginning that if I was going to get anywhere or accomplish anything, I was probably going to need to have people around me supporting me, quite literally by lifting me up sometimes. If I was going to reach that top shelf, I wasn't doing it alone, and so.
And isn't that a metaphor for life
Absolutely.
As well? I mean, we do need to have people who lift us up every day. In every way, because otherwise it's just we're inundated by a sea of negativity and sad news all around the world.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and it's not to discount any of it. I think that there is a time and place with which we need to take that information in and honor it and pray for these people. And it's tough to rise when there is such a negative environment.
Absolutely. And, the fact of the matter is nobody accomplishes anything alone.
No.
It doesn't matter who you are. And, everybody relies on others in some capacity, even people that are self-made. They had supporters. They had mentors.
Well, they had teams. They had teams.
They had people believing in them as they were growing up and telling them they could do it. And so I think that has also shifted in our culture, is recognizing that, actually, behind all of these self-made people, there are teams of people making it happen.
Absolutely.
And shining the light on this one person. And so, and I think partially we have social media to thank for that, because we're able to see behind the scenes of people's lives so much more, and businesses, that we're like, actually nobody does this alone, which means I don't have to do it alone.
We are interdependent.
Absolutely.
I don't believe in this concept of independence that actually a lot of women have claimed, right? I mean, I was one of them, so I can honestly say that I used to say, I'm independent because I own my own business, I have my own house, I own my kids. No, just kidding.
I bet they wouldn't agree. Well, and you can be a strong, independent woman.
Well, but that was it. I could not then see the difference between being a strong, independent woman and also being so open and transparent and inclusive and collaborative at the same time. I thought then that being strong and independent would require me to almost create separation. And I was.
Right, like you'd get your title taken away if you let somebody help you.
Right, or even towards men, because I wasn't in a relationship. I thought, well, I don't need you. I don't need you, and I can do this by myself. Well, the reality is, I can do it by myself. Is it fun? No. Is it
exhausting?
Is it pleasant? No. Is it actually the way that we are meant to operate?
And it's not sustainable.
It is not.
You will burn out so much faster if you try to go at things alone, especially entrepreneurship.
Oh my God, absolutely.
Yeah.
So hallelujah to interdependence.
And recognizing that it's not a negative to depend upon people and to rely upon people and to support
in a healthy
others
way,
in return.
as long as it's not like codependent, obviously.
Right. Well, and of course there's so many nuances in this space, and that's a lot of what I teach in my work, is how do you collaborate in a way that's comfortable and symbiotic for both parties, making sure that no one person is doing the heavy lifting, or if they are, that it's going to come back to them, at some point in the relationship. It's teaching people how to work together, because I find that, because I think so many of us were raised with this, like, you can do it, you can be the winner, you've got to be the best mentality. We're not really great at knowing how to actually work well and play well with others. And I think the millennial generation and younger are kind of naturally better at this, because they were taught from a very early age, to be part of a team and group projects and all of that stuff. So it kind of comes a little bit more naturally, but even still, there's that achievement mentality that if you're going to win or if you're going to succeed, the people around you can't. And I think that's starting to change. And that's a lot of what I focus on with my clients, is how do we come together to amplify each other's voices, share our resources, and work as a team so that we all achieve our goals.
So what turned you on to this? What is it about you and your life that made space for you to be lit up when you are thinking about collaboration?
I think I've always been the kind of girl who had a bunch of different friend groups. I was at lunch the one that was like, I'll spend 5 minutes at this table, 5 minutes at this table, and, bounced around. And so I've always really loved having a lot of different types of people in my life. And I think, that was never intentional. It just is naturally the way that I always was. And I always played team sports. I never played any sport that was a solo sport. And I think I recognized from a very early age that the more variety of people you have in your life, the more experiences you're open to, the more you can learn from other people who are different than you and have different perspectives. And, I came from a tiny town in Florida of 15,000 people. And when I got out to California, to Los Angeles, I was like, holy crap, this is a whole nother world of types of people and, you know, backgrounds and diversity and on all of these things. So I've been loving being here because I'm still the same way. I'm still involved in a ton of different groups. I'm still a part of a bunch of different friend groups. And depending on, you know, the scenario, I'm getting something different. And I'm growing as a person with every interaction I have with somebody different than me. And I think my life has been made more rich and holistic because of that. So, you know, finding a way to transition that into a business sense has been really fun because it's all been personal until maybe the last 5 years or so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So who is your ideal client if you were to create an image for us of the ideal client? Is it a millennial, or is it more of the what's the other generation?
Gen X.
Gen X,
Ys are still a little bit young. My ideal client, and actually the women that I've been working with for the last almost 3 years.
Mostly women?
All women, actually.
All women.
Which is interesting.
Yes.
It wasn't intentional, but that's who I think naturally are like, I know I want to collaborate, but I just need a plan. So my client tends to be kind of a recovering achiever, you know, recovering type A, former corporate a lot of times, who's gone out on her own to have her own business, mostly service-based, some products. But collaboration lends itself very well to service-based businesses because the people that have service-based business, which is what I have, which is what you have, we are our product. And when you are your product, that lends itself, of course, to being able to say, well, I can put myself out there in this capacity. I can trade you this for that, right? But it also opens us up to fear of not being enough or not having a big enough following, or there's ego things that come into play because it is us as the product. So I think my sweet spot are with women who are that, you know, I call myself a type A with a dash of woo. And that's very much my client too. They're women who are like recovering goalaholics who are now starting to see the value of softening a little bit and of being open to life's, you know, mysteries, we'll say, in the universe and all of that, and collaboration, but they still want a plan. They still want to know, okay, yes, I get it. I want to do this. Can you just tell me exactly what to do and I'll do it? So I work very well with that woman because she's me, and I know the pitfalls, I know the pain points, I know the insecurities very well of trying to promote yourself as a product and as a business owner and as a business while still having the confidence to, you know, ask for more money and, you know, say that, yes, I'm good at what I do. Yes, I am the expert in this. Yes, I'm worthy of being partnered with. So,
are they starting their business, or are they mostly?
It ranges. It ranges. I've had people that started a month before we started working together, and I've had people in business for 10 years. So I think, you know, collaboration is a beautiful strategy that can be implemented at any point in your business life cycle. It serves different purposes at those different points. You know, so if you're just launching your business, it's amazing because you generally have zero to very little marketing dollars. And the types of collaborations I do are mostly barter type relationships. So I give you this, you give me that, no money's exchanged. So in the beginning, it's great because they're like, cool, I don't have to spend any money and I'm going to get promotion if I do this properly. So that's great for launching. If you're in the middle, it's fun because that's when you can start to do product collaborations or you can do event collaborations where you're really just keeping the momentum going in your business and trying to attract new audiences potentially. And then as the later stages of business can use it, it's awesome for like attracting a whole new target demo or for, you know, re-engaging like an earlier part of your audience or really any number of things, or just, again, keeping that momentum flowing with fresh eyeballs and new future fans who just haven't heard about you yet. So it can work at any stage. That's why what I do is very dependent on the client in particular and where they are in their business. And of course, their own personal hangups. And I call myself part entrepreneur therapist because I am. There are some days where I realize, okay, I got to close my laptop. We're going to just talk it out today. This is not going to be a strategy day. This is going to be a heart-to-heart day where We talk through what's holding you back. Like, what's going on here? Why do you feel like you're not worthy of reaching out to this brand? Let's get to that. So depending on the client, they get a very different week to week engagement. But what they all get at the end are those very solid, tangible tools, templates, and best practices so that they can implement a collaboration strategy long after our time together. I'm of the mindset of teaching a woman to fish versus catching the fish for her.
Well, yes, and we were discussing this prior, is that, it also sounds like we have pretty much the same template in terms of our avatar. I mean, my typical woman I work with is also a very masculine, very driven, very goal-minded entrepreneur or corporate person, whichever. And so coming back to softening up is learning the process versus the outcome. So how do you teach them, and how tough is it for you to teach these women how to focus on the process versus the outcome, because that's what they've been used to, right?
Yeah. I think it's about adopting a collaborative mindset. And that's what I say is what really they're getting from this. They're learning how to think collaboratively. They're learning how to look at all of their business goals from a collaboration standpoint. And so how we actually do that in practice is week to week, we spend a little bit of time talking about, so what happened last week? Like, a lot of times they'll say, well, I had a call with a potential partner, or I met somebody new and I want to partner with them, or I'm in the middle of doing this partnership, or I'm going to this conference and I want to know how to best approach new people. So we really look at what's happening in real life, in their lives and their businesses. And I help them think about all of those scenarios from a collaboration standpoint. So if they said, well, I'm going to this conference next week, I don't know how to like meet people properly, or like I think I've been doing it wrong, or I don't know if I'm networking right. So we'll talk through scenarios. I give them strategies for, if you're going to collect business cards, you go back to your hotel room that night and you send out an email that night and you say, it was great meeting you, reference something you chatted about, and then give them a way to connect with you right away and have a follow-up, right? But we also talk about the fact that you don't have to follow up with everybody, that everybody's not going to be a good fit, and that's okay too. You have to be strategic with your time. And networking can be a black hole for a lot of people. And most people hate it.
Yes.
And so I try and help them see it as like, listen, you could be meeting your future old friend that night, right? Like your future old friend, you met them at this conference. So a lot of it is strategies to help them understand, like, okay, here's a situation that I have found myself in numerous times throughout my life. How can I apply a new lens to it and see it differently than I saw it before? Instead of seeing it as a chore where I have to go collect business cards, how can I see it as an opportunity to meet potential collaborators?
Yeah,
it flips it.
It flips it completely, and it's interesting you mentioned this because last week we created a show with Claudia Black, and she's an actress, local actress, and transformational coach. And we were talking about how women network, and how, because I was saying that, for women today to go into a networking environment, it really is, it has to be different. They have to approach it differently. And the way that I teach it is approach it as though you're coming to a group of people with whom you simply want to listen, and you also want to connect and learn how to relate to, and give your heart in this equation. Give of your heart instead of really searching for that outcome, for that goal, to the goal of creating a partnership at any cost, or the goal of getting business at any cost. It's one way, but it doesn't have to be our way. No. Right?
No. There's so many other opportunities when you approach it that way.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Listening first over making sure they know who you are before you leave that conversation. So many people.
I mean, if you just take that little hint, right, or piece of advice, listen is so important. Listen to what they need. Listen to what
that's the key,
right?
Trying to listen for clues.
That's right, because
how you can help them,
and it feeds you as to how you can help them. It feeds you how you can actually determine whether they are for you or not, because maybe they're not.
Usually they're not, and that's okay. It's more likely that they're not than that they are. So if you've asked the right questions and heard what they said, then you'll be able to go back to that hotel room. I will sometimes write on the card, any ideas that I had initially for how we might be able to work together. And then I'll have a reference point later, and I can again reference that in the email.
Right.
And if it felt like, okay, there's nothing off the top of my head that I think we could do together, I'll at least connect with them on LinkedIn, send them a note along with that connection request saying it was great meeting with you. Let's stay in touch. And that's great too. And, you shouldn't always have to have a thing right away in order to connect with somebody. I think sometimes the best connections are people that you had no idea how it was going to work out. And usually those are the ones that connect you to somebody else that is a perfect match.
Or you can connect them
Absolutely.
to somebody else, right?
Yes.
But certainly not, come in, shake that hand, give them your card, and tell them what you do right away.
Right.
That is so awkward.
Well, and it's putting it on them instead of on you. You're giving them all the control in that scenario. And they might not be prepared to follow up properly. But if you go into it trying to really investigate everybody you're meeting to see
I call it
somebody?
Curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, you be curious about people.
Yeah.
Then you get the chance to go back and say, okay, based on what they told me, is there somebody I think they should meet? Is there a way that we can work together? You can run those scenarios and then approach them in a more, thoughtful manner via email or on a call where it's not just a quick interaction at a cocktail party or whatever, and say, hey, based on our conversation, here's a few ways I thought we might be able to collaborate. If you're interested in chatting further, let's have a call. But that way they can come back and take their time and look through your materials and your links that you've sent and think, wow, she really heard me.
Exactly.
I like this chick.
And it's meaningful, right? It
Yes.
feels meaningful in the process
Absolutely.
of creating that collaboration. Because I'm still amazed every time I go into networking environments where people are still just so fake and so I just want to,
It's the spray and pray technique. It's like, I'll just get my business card
That's right,
in
the
front of
spray.
as many people as I can.
It doesn't work.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you the last time I gave my business card to somebody and they followed up with me. It almost never happens, but I collect everybody's business card and I will follow up with them, because then it's like, okay, yes, here, of course, take my card as well so you remember who I am, but I would much rather have theirs, or at least connect, even if they're like, well, I don't have a card, I'll say, well, what's your email? I'll go ahead and just write it straight. I'll send you an email right now. That way you can manage the situation and you're not relying on somebody else to do the heavy lifting for you. I think even from a value exchange perspective, that sets the tone.
Absolutely.
To where they're like, wow, she took the time to follow up with me and remembered parts of what I told her and already has something of value that she's offering me in the form of a connection or an idea.
And that's, I think, what we were linking our past conversation last week to this point in terms of what does that mean to bring your heart. It means that you're coming to this interaction or communication or even meeting with an intention to give.
Yes.
And give give value, give of yourself, give of something that you possibly can have to help that person.
Yes.
It's a completely different ball game than just coming to get.
Well, and I call it making deposits before you need to withdraw. Right? It's like you need to make some deposit. You're going to have a zero balance if you try and withdraw right off the bat. Like that doesn't feel good for anybody.
You can't go wrong if you add value to someone.
No, never. Even if you never get the value back from that person.
Well, you'll get it from someone else.
You will get. I believe in relationship karma through and through. I've seen it. I've felt it. I've experienced it. It's real. And usually it's not the people that I give that I get from. And that's okay. It's a ripple effect. And often the people that I've helped out along the way, they might introduce me down the road to somebody like 5 years later, that I could have never strategically meant to have that happen. No. But it did because I gave of my time and my energy and some kind of value to them. And it stuck with them. People do remember how you make them feel.
That's pretty much what people remember.
That is,
not what you
if
said.
Anything else. I don't remember names or faces.
On a short basis, it's definitely what you say, right?
Yes.
But on a long-term basis, people remember how they feel, how you make them feel.
Exactly. So,
what else can you give our audience in terms of typical bumps in the road of an entrepreneur who is looking to collaborate? What are the other standard issues that these beautiful women experience?
I think a main one is not being clear on expectations with potential partners from the beginning. What I see happen is, in the beginning, most collaborations are reactive, right? They're because somebody came to you and said, hey, do you want to do this thing? And as a person being asked, you can't help but feel like honored. You're
flattered,
like,
honored.
well, thank you. Yes, of course, I would love to do that. That sounds great.
Before you think about it.
Before you consider whether it makes sense for you, time and energy and resource wise, and before you stop to think, okay, yes, I do want to do this, but what do I need to get out of this for it to be a good thing for me too? For it to be worth my time, energy, and effort. Because especially when you're an entrepreneur and you are a team of one, you have very limited resources. Just across the board generally. And so if somebody's coming to you saying, let's do this thing together, you have to pause a minute and think, okay, can I come through with what they're asking from me? Because sometimes you can't, and you have to be honest with them and say, I would love to do this. I would love to work together in some capacity. However, I really don't have the resources right now to do that. Especially if you're a service-based entrepreneur, you are your resources. And if you have a full client caseload at the moment and they're asking for you to give of your time for free, you really have to identify whether you can do that comfortably without feeling taken advantage of. So this whole getting clear on expectations from the get-go is paramount. And it feels uncomfortable in the beginning because it can feel like you're not grateful that they came to you and asked you to collaborate. When in reality, I find that partners generally respect you more from the get-go.
Absolutely.
If you come back and say, I'm totally honored, but here's what I need to get out of it, they're like, oh, she has her shit together.
Well, it's also a question of boundaries.
Absolutely.
It's setting up your boundaries, and typically as women, we're really bad at that.
Yeah, we just want to keep giving.
We want to keep
yes.
giving, and we want to say yes, and we want to be that inclusive, nurturing, loving, giving person. When in business, that's great to a certain point until you feel taken advantage of. But really,
and inevitably you will, and it's your fault.
It's exactly that. It's your fault. So you are responsible for those boundaries,
yes,
right? And to make them. And the other thing that I see, how beautifully linked it is to also women, is speaking their truth. Speaking their truth with firmness and boundaries is challenging.
It can be, but it's a muscle.
It is completely a muscle.
You just have to practice. And I find that, in my early days of doing partnerships, I overpromised, underdelivered left and right. I would say, sure, I can go to the moon. I'll buy my own spaceship. Let me put the unicorn passenger in the backseat. It's like, what are you talking? You can't do any of that. And so I would disappoint people, which feels so much worse than being firm on the front end.
Yes.
So I learned over many, mistakes of saying yes when I needed to say yes, and I need this to make this happen. That people respect you so much more if you can just say, I'm honored. I would love to do this. Here's what I need from you to make this happen. You don't have to say to make it worth it, to say yes. You can frame it as like, this is just the facts of the situation. Can we come to this agreement? And if yes, let's go. Let's do it.
What I see also in all that you're talking about is that one has to be really clear with who they are and what they want through their business in order to get to all those steps.
Yes.
Right? So do you sometimes bump into that lack of knowing for that
always.
woman, right?
Almost always.
Right? And so I'm sure it kind of slows down the process for you to teach her about collaboration, like the actual business side of it, because she's just lacking clarity.
Every one of my clients, no matter how long they've been in business, I know that in our 10 sessions together, we're not even thinking about collaboration till at least week 4 or 5. And it's because of that, because you can't even figure out who's a good partner or what you want from them or what you can give if you don't know how you measure success in your business. And so often entrepreneurs, and myself included, I'm guilty of this, we just start going. We just start moving.
Well,
we figure it out as we go.
Absolutely.
Which is fine.
Which is the entrepreneur way.
That's how it works. However, when you're going to start assigning strategies, methods to your madness, you have to pause for a minute and think, okay, actually, what do I want? You know, do I want exposure? If yes, how much, where, to whom? What do I want to do with that exposure? Say best case scenario, I get tons of exposure. Am I set up properly for lots of potential new clients? Do I have systems in place? Do I have my pricing set? Are my offerings locked? Or am I still figuring it out as I go? Because I see that happen a lot too. A best case scenario can happen where suddenly you get an influx of new eyeballs on your website, and your website's not done, or it's not user friendly, or your pricing's all outdated, or, you know, any number of things. So before we even consider reaching out to any potential partner, I make them really get clear on what are your business goals, what are your offerings and your services, are your price points set, who's your target market, you know, why are they your target market, are they actually your target market?
Yes,
because a lot of times
possibly could not.
And you know, what's funny is we'll often come to a place where people are like, yeah, I guess I've never actually thought about that. It's sort of just happened along the way. Or, you know, I thought my target client was this person, but in reality, everybody that's ever paid me is this person. So there's a lot of soul searching that ends up happening in those first few weeks that has to happen before we can go on to this next stage, because I want all of them to be set up for success so that when these things go really well and achieve the desired outcome of exposure or whatever they're trying to do, that they don't get shot in the foot by not being prepared on the back end. So yes, every single client I've ever had has had to take a beat and say, you know what, why am I offering that at that rate? Or is this my target demo? Interesting.
Do I really want to do this?
Honestly, some people have literally changed their business model about halfway through because they were like, because I also ask big questions like, what is your business in 5 years if everything goes perfectly or according to plan? And then sometimes they go, I realize I don't really have a plan, or I don't really know what perfect looks like. And so they'll start to ask themselves those big, deep questions. And sometimes we'll take a break and I'll say, figure this out. Call me back when you're ready. And then we'll go from there. But it's really fun for me because every single client's different. And I get to really remain nimble with my approach. And yes, I'm teaching the same things for the most part. And none of it's rocket science. It's relationship management. It's at the core. It's how do you make connections? How do you nurture those relationships? How do you maintain them? And how do you do interesting, fun things together that's going to like make everybody's goals happen? But how we get there is completely different depending on the client. So it's so much. I never get bored. It's impossible to get bored. Every single person's different.
So who do you look for in terms of collaborator?
I mean, so I have a very clear formula for what makes a good partner. You need overlap in mission, vibe, and audience.
Mission, vibe, and audience.
Mission, vibe, and audience. So I actually have a tattoo. It's a Venn diagram tattoo. I don't know if you can see it from over there. It's sort of tricky to see. But the two circles that intersect, that middle piece on the Venn diagram is where the mission, vibe, and audiences need to overlap. And that means, you know, if one of you is, you know, an oil company and the other one's an environmental agency, your missions do not overlap. Doesn't work. But if you're both heart-centered businesses, fine, missions overlap. Vibe is how you communicate to your audience and to the world. So if you're a very buttoned up corporate speaking kind of company, you're probably not going to partner with a fast and loose company that drops F-bombs in their copy and, you know, uses acronyms and stuff like that. Like your vibe is not the same. And then audience, of course, you need to have the same people. Otherwise, what are you doing? The only time that scenario isn't true is if you're trying to attract a new audience than you currently have, which is fine.
Right.
But still, you're looking for that new audience in the partner. So you still want them to overlap.
Right.
And so those three pieces need to overlap. And then the next phase of it is you can have one but not both of these overlapping. Either your offering, so what it is that you do, or your execution. So if your offering is the same, your execution has to be different.
Correct. Otherwise, there is no complementary.
You're the same exact company.
Yeah.
Right? You're literally the same company on paper. Or if your execution is the same, so you do the thing the same way as the other person, but you offer something different, great, perfect. So you're looking for complementary companies, right? You're looking for well-aligned, complementary organizations, brands, individuals, events, whatever. That's what makes for a good partner. So no matter what industry you're in, no matter who you are, what your goals are, those things need to be correct before you can even approach somebody. So for me, I mean, depending on my goal that I'm trying to achieve with this collaboration, if I'm trying to launch a new program, say, and I know that the target demo is this particular woman, I'm going to go to where that woman hangs out, online and off. That could be membership organizations. It could be podcasts she listens to, blogs she reads, events she attends, a sports team she's part of, whatever. You go to where your people are, and those places, those platforms, those podcasts, those events, those are your partners. Because of course you're going and you're saying, well, I know my person's here. We have similar mission and vibe, and our execution and offering aren't both the same. This could be a potential partner. And then, of course, from there, you need to get into the minds of that partner and ask them, like, what's important to you right now? Are you even interested in a collaboration? Do you have the time, energy, and capacity? And if so, what do you need to get out of it? And then, you go from there. But in terms of just finding the right partners, that's really the strategy. And it's not hard. You just, and of course, so much of it's gut-based, too. It's like, I just really like you, and I'd like to work with you. Once you have that, then you're like, okay, let's dig a little bit further. Let's investigate this and see if this actually makes sense.
Beautiful content you're giving us. That's amazing. I love the keys to a perfect partner, because it's very simple.
It's very simple.
It's very simple.
It's just relationships. And also, of course, you have to like the person.
Oh my God.
At minimum.
Of course. I mean, that to me, that's like a given.
But you know what's funny?
Collaborate with someone you don't.
It's not always a given. People are like, well, I just really love this brand, so I'm going to look past the fact that my
but it's
contact...
not going to work, is it?
No, it isn't.
Okay,
and if it is, it's going to suck.
I thought, oh my God, she's going to tell us.
No. And my rule of thumb for that, and this comes from having done more partnerships than I could ever count for companies before I went out on my own. Usually, if you don't like the person that you're interfacing with at that brand, I always say wait 6 months, make up an excuse, say, you know what, actually, let's circle back in, end of this year in 6 months. It's not quite the right timing yet. Usually, if they're bad at their job or if they're rude, they'll be gone by then. So then you'll have a new person to work with. And you don't have to give up on working with that brand. But also never burn a bridge, because people move companies.
Yes.
Always. And even entrepreneurs.
It's a small world out there.
It's such a small world. And again, relationship karma is real. Even if they're a crappy human being and you don't like them, you remain cordial.
And professional.
End it nicely. There have been so many bridges I wanted to just light on fire, but didn't. And I'm so glad I haven't, because...
They came back?
They'll either come back.
They formed another bridge somewhere somehow.
Yes, they will move to another company, and I'm like, oh no, this person's there now. Or you might find they, 6 months from now, they're like a different person, and you realize there was something internal going on you didn't know about. They were under a lot of pressure. You're never privy to everything going on in people's lives. So you can't take it personally, as hard as that is. It's not about you, most likely. It's probably about them. So just, walk away if it doesn't feel good. But another thing to remember, if you're not partnering with a company, if you're partnering with an individual, and you might think, well, I can't come back in 6 months. It's their business. Sure. But a lot of times, sadly, or just reality of the situation is entrepreneurs will end up going to work for a company again. And you might find that, oh, wow, you don't have your own business anymore. You now work for this company I'd love to partner with. We already have a relationship, and oh wow, you're a different person now because you're not paying all the bills and you're not running this and you're not under this immense pressure. So just, I'd say believe people when they show you who they are. You do not have to work with everybody. You shouldn't. But don't fully close the door, because people mature, situations change, they move around. Never burn a bridge, but also trust your gut. If something's telling you, I think I'm not going to like this too much, walk away. It's never too late. It's okay. Do it respectfully, of course. Don't screw anybody over by doing it, but don't feel, again, that need to say yes and just not cause trouble, because at the end of the day, you have to take care of yourself and your business, and your time could better be spent doing something else if you were to walk away from it. So,
have you been in the business of rescuing with some of your clients, rescuing a collapsed collaboration, let's say?
Yes, there have been times where they'll come to me. It's usually past clients. They'll come back and say, hey, can I run this by you? This feels off, or this doesn't feel good. And I'll say, okay, lay out the scene for me. And generally, they haven't done a good job of being transparent about what they needed. They just said yes. Or the person didn't do a good job of saying what they needed. So then they started asking after the fact or down the road when it was like, hold on.
It should have been at the beginning.
It always should be before anybody agrees to anything. And that's as simple as having a roles and responsibilities doc.
What about a signed contract? Is that something you recommend?
So I'm not a big fan of like big official contracts for barter relationships where no money's exchanged. If money's exchanging hands, yes, always.
So do you always recommend bartering?
It's just my specialty. It's the type of collaboration I love the most because it's so accessible to anity, and I think it's the most creative.
It is, and I would like to ask your opinion actually on this because in my past, the results of some, not all, bartering circumstances have been that the other party starts taking for granted the offer I am servicing them with. And so I've looked into that and spoken about it with some more spiritual people who have a different outlook on that and say, well, maybe the fact that there is no exchange of money, a real exchange, or an exchange of
physical money.
Exactly.
Currency.
So money is also an expression of energy and worth. And so perhaps that has to do with the bartering going sideways.
Yes, I think
what's your opinion?
You're right in that sometimes when there's money involved, people take it more seriously or they see, oh, that's how much this is worth. Great.
Correct.
You can achieve that still without exchanging money. You can, and I do think that if you're going to exchange your time, if you're going to give, say, a free, one-on-one session as part of the barter, you write out how much that is typically worth, how much you typically charge for that. Because again, it's kind of setting the value in their minds. And I think if you are going to exchange products or services or anything like that, if you're going to give of anything, say you're doing a giveaway together, putting down how much something's value is, even though you're not going to exchange it, is great because it shows them, oh, her thing is worth $500. I was only going to contribute this thing that was worth $100.
So that should be part of kind of a layout.
Yes.
And which is really about that clarity we were just discussing,
It's the expectations,
right?
it's the transparency.
Okay, right.
And it can be, I literally do a roles and responsibilities document, which is as simple as 2 columns, you and them. And within each, you say who's responsible for what are you giving? There you could do in parentheses, value equals whatever. Timeline, tasks, things like that. Like, okay, this is who's in charge of what, and then here's when things are happening and who's responsible for that thing to happen. It can be as easy as a Google Doc, but so that everybody's got eyeballs on it. And you can say, okay, does this look fair? Is this good to you? Am I missing anything? Like, were you under any different impression here? It just makes sure from the get-go that you haven't left anything off that they thought they were getting, or you haven't asked for something that they weren't clear they needed to give. So before you press go, having this one document that just lays everything out in one place is invaluable. And it doesn't have to be a big formal contract. It's literally just like clarity.
It's an understanding.
It is. And I do put a signature line at the bottom.
Interesting.
So that just so it's like, if you're good, go ahead and throw your signature on here.
It's a commitment.
It's a commitment. Because again, even though you're not physically exchanging dollar bills, time is money.
Time, your
resources,
energy, everything is, of
so
course.
It's being clear about that. And I think to your point, it shows them, oh, this is serious. Like, she's giving this amount of her time or resources.
That's a clear boundary.
It's very clear
of your own worth.
Exactly.
Right?
And for you, I think it feels really empowering to say, this is what I'm willing to give. Here's how much I charge for that. How are you going to meet me on that same level? Because it needs to be an even value exchange. And this is something that comes up a lot with my clients as well, is they start to think, well, gosh, that person's thing is worth so much more than mine. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. Forget it. I'm not worthy of being partnered with. And in reality, You just have to bring more to the table in that situation. And
Value.
that's fine. It's just value. It's like a scale. It's like, yeah, if their side's way heavier, just keep adding things to your side until it evens out. And often what we think people want isn't what they want. So if you're partnering with a big brand and you're like, my list is so small, they're not going to want to partner with me, they might not even want exposure from you. That might not be top of mind for them. They might want content from you. They might want hookups for their members. They might want something that you've not even thought of. That's why, going back to the beginning of these conversations, getting clear on like, what would be of value for you? What are you focusing on in the coming months that I can support you on? Because again, it's like, help me help you. And if there's nothing you can do to help them, then that's sometimes the end of the conversation for now, where you're like, you know what? Sounds like this might not be the right timing and fit. Let's touch base in 3 to 6 months.
Correct.
See if things are different. Never has to be a door close. It just sometimes is like, yeah, okay, actually, I really like you. I'd love to work together. Let's touch base later. I've done that so many times. And then later when you touch base, you're in different positions, and it's like, yes, now is the time. Great. And it feels really good.
I love it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ease in the way that you're describing this type
It should be fun.
It should be fun.
It should be simple.
Exactly.
We're just people all trying to figure stuff out.
Well, people are just thinking that, because it's business, it has to be very
It doesn't.
complicated. No, maybe not complicated, but a bit more strenuous and
buttoned up.
And buttoned up. And this is the old way of
Yes, it is.
It's the patriarchal
It
way
is.
of approaching business.
Well, and
Business has to be fun and joyful, and
yeah, otherwise,
look at us.
gosh, what a
We're
nightmare.
Two serious entrepreneurs, yet do we look like we're all buttoned up? No.
exactly. I'm wearing yoga pants right now.
Do I want to be buttoned up anymore? No.
I have no desire. I want
No
all of
desire.
my interactions with clients and collaborators to be fun and easy.
Has to be also the representation of you.
Yes, otherwise it's going to
know?
be inauthentic, and then that shows. And anybody you attract from an inauthentic partnership or
Oh my God,
collaboration
that's a
will
load
not be
of-
aligned.
Exactly, and that is bringing you a load of problems.
It is. It is. You don't want those people.
No.
So you want to be fully transparent and true to yourself, and not get lost in the collaboration as well, just to try and fit a mold.
Oh yes, and not get lost in the lure
Yes.
of what it looks like from
Yeah.
the outside, because a lot of it can be looking and feeling like glams and so we have a couple of minutes left. So I want to ask you, what brings you the most joy in this business on a daily basis?
Seeing my clients' minds go to at ease after our time together, because we get 1 hour a week together, and I try and do it all in person if we can. Some of them are via Zoom. But I can very much tap into people's energy when they walk in the room and when I sit down with them. And I'll often say, what's going on here? What's happening? What's going on inside there today? And they'll be like, oh, God, it's just this thing, and I don't know. And so by the end of our time, I feel like their 100 pounds has gone off their chest, and they feel more confident and more ready to take on whatever it is they were trying to take on. And I can just see they feel more empowered. They walk out of the room taller and more confident, shoulders back. And that to me, if I can have anything to do with it, is the greatest job in the world. And just seeing them go out and do collaborations after our time together. When my clients collaborate with each other, I just want to die. I want to die of happiness. It's the greatest feeling of all time. And there's nothing better for me, because to me, I'm turning on light switches with each of them. And then they've got these bright rooms, that I walk out of, and they stay lit.
Nice.
And it's the coolest thing ever.
What infuriates you the most? Not specifically about the clients or the business, in life in general.
People that are bad at their jobs. Truly. Because to me, everybody's great at something.
Yes, and
everybody's
it's
good at a lot
basically
of
that
things.
They haven't found their own
They've
truth
stopped
and their own
trying,
gift.
or
Yeah.
they're not willing to ask themselves. And to me, it's like, leave that position so that somebody that is good at that can take it. You're being selfish with yourself and those people and the people you're serving, and it's a ripple effect. When somebody's bad at their job, it shows, and it's felt by the person they're
felt,
interacting
yes,
with.
yes.
And then that just sends out negativity into the world. That's why I believe fast food is bad for us, because most of the people serving it and making it hate their jobs, and then it's just like anger going into everything.
Yeah, I agree. Or the way that animals are killed in order
Yes.
to feed us. I mean,
Right,
if
it's all energy. As woo as you
all-
want to go here,
it's all
it
energy.
is.
It
so
is.
just be better at your job or quit, man. Just get out of that.
Get over it.
Stop it.
Do us a favor,
Please.
please.
Come on. Begging you.
Well, what a pleasure. That was so much fun and so much value. You added a lot of value to our audience today. Thank you
hope
so
so.
much, of course. And thanks for lighting up the world with your beautiful smile and your collaboration expertise. You are the expert. I would go back to that. You're the collaboration expert.
I try.
I love it.
I'm learning every day.
As we all are. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Baily.
Thank you,
It was a
Tatiana.
pleasure.